Hi, everyone, and welcome to the End of Life Journey and Beyond, the Sands of Time. My name is Lisa Strahs-Lorenc, and I'm a bereavement specialist. Hi, Susan. Nice to see you again.
Hi, Lisa. Good to see you. We had off the last couple of weeks because you've been a traveling butterfly.
I
So
have.
it's so nice to see you today. And today's topic is is unique in that we're talking about foods, right? And how important they are in our lives. And they are still important when it comes to a loss in your life, especially then, because there's so many things that we don't know how to that we don't know how to handle. We don't know what to expect, but they're also triggers in many ways,
Yeah.
right?
And I want to go back. We think
Okay.
about our childhood and think about growing up and
Right.
think about the food. You're in your grandmother's house and you remember that your grandmother always cooked such and such. Your parents always cooked, certain things. And I think that that really emits some very interesting memories for us. So food plays a very important place in showing people love and remembering them,
Yeah.
their legacy.
Yeah.
So it's a great topic today. Yeah.
Yeah. And I look forward to, talking a little bit more about this. So I randomly thought of a bunch of things last night that really take place when it comes to, because food is it's a big part of our lives, right? Of course it is. I mean, we eat 3 times a day. It really affects so many things. And when you do lose a person that's very close to you, not only are you losing the camaraderie, right? Did I say that right? The camaraderie of a unit, and an event, a gathering. If you're eating meals with this person, even if it's one meal a day, even if it's one meal a week, if it's a family member, you're used to that schedule. And how do you do that alone? And a lot of things, a big part of grieving and bereavement, and a very high percentage of people talk about the worst time for them is dinner time,
That's right.
and how they wish that a friend would call and just stop by with a meal, or let's go out and grab something. And because that's the hardest time, you're used to communing
Yes.
together and
Yes.
conversation. So you're losing a big part of that if it's an immediate family member in your home,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Isn't it interesting that when people suffer a loss, the first thing people do is bring over casseroles? I think that's really interesting. A lot of people brought me food and it was in my
Yeah.
freezer and they didn't want me to have to worry about making food and all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People aren't sure what to do.
Yeah.
They aren't sure what to do. And, to bring food is comforting.
Yes.
Food is comfort.
It is.
It's comfort. I know when I go through my tough times, I wish I was one of these people that I didn't eat for 3 days. I'm completely the opposite, and I want to eat everything I can get my hands on
That's right.
because I'm trying to fill a space inside of me, that comfort level. And why we think food can do that, I don't know.
Well,
But
weren't we brought up with, if you're crying, then you get something to eat, or if you're happy, then you get something else to eat, or, right?
don't
So
leave the dinner table until you finish everything on
right,
your plate,
that's right.
right? That was a big one
That was a good
then.
one. That's right.
And we
So
don't learn until we're adults that, hey, we really can live on one small meal a day. Our bodies survive and live, and we can even be healthier.
Mhm. But the legacy of the food and what it
Yes.
means to remember people through that is really interesting. While people
Yeah.
are alive and then when people are gone.
Right.
I want to talk about when people are alive first, because there's so many things that you can pass down.
Oh,
I see
yeah.
a 95-year-old every week, and she was my mom's best friend. And she's been passing down these recipes and telling me stories about how her pea soup was always the thing that everybody loved, or that she used to bring in these cookies called thimble cookies. And she used to bring them into work with her, and everybody loved her thimble cookies. So I started making them and I would bring them into the city. And I've done that a couple times. And, she says, well, that's not exactly the sprinkles I used or whatever. But the point is that she has handed down different memories which is her legacy for, what means something.
Right. And it's so important for everybody listening to this today that if you have that type of legacy from your ancestors and you have those recipes, do something with them. One project that I do with my clients, I do put recipes into a book, and we publish the book together, and they give one to each one of their family members. But there's so many online places that you can do that now with your recipes. And, even when you open a cookbook that your grandmother loved, and then you see the paper recipes in there with her handwriting and the little notes, that's a treasure.
It is a treasure.
Because you feel like that's a piece of her.
Yes.
My grandmother hasn't been alive now for 30 years of my life. But when I see that and you see her handwriting, you're like, whoa.
Yes.
So these are important things to remember with not only your recipes, but what have you got from other ancestors in the family? Maybe you can combine them, and put something nice together for your future generations, the ones that you're never going to get a chance to meet. But guess what?
Yes.
You can leave your thumbprint in the world by doing something like this, right?
Yeah, and the stories with them, even. It's like my aunt's carrot pudding. That was always in Thanksgiving. I remember how delicious it always was. And I've always tried to replicate it every Thanksgiving. And it's a lot of work, by the way, grating all those carrots and all that other business. But it's a really good recipe. And of course, you use a food processor, so it's a little easier. But, again, my aunt and what she put into it and the love she put into it, it's just a nice remembrance of So, yeah.
And, and it is going to be hard. If you've just recently lost a loved one too, and it is hard to get through these challenges and triggers. I know a woman who her dad loved when she made enchiladas. That was his favorite thing. So he would ask her several times a year, can you make your enchiladas? He wanted enchiladas. Well, now that he's passed, she can't go near the enchilada. It's almost frightening for her.
I want to delve into that for a second. It's like when somebody, the anniversary is coming up. Today is, 38 years since my father's been gone. And sometimes the anticipation of what that day means is more than the day itself. So the same thing with the food, or the same thing with the movie, or the same thing with 100 other things. I think that looking at it and facing it is different from doing it. If she actually pushed herself and actually did it, she might be pleasantly surprised about how it brings him back to her.
Exactly. And you have to put a twist on that whole situation, because in time, maybe not at the very beginning, maybe it'll take a year or whatever, but in time, you use that as a celebration and a way to honor their life and make it a special occasion and celebrate it with all the other members in your family. And you're doing this in honor of him.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. It's like my fondues. Every year I make a fondue for winter solstice, which was our special holiday. And the winter solstice and the whole fondue thing. And we got our first fondue pot in like 1975, and I still have it. And I love it because it does bring my husband back, and all the memories of those years that we were doing fondues. And it's continued now with girlfriends, which is really special.
Yeah.
So there's another twist on it. But I think,
exactly. Another thing though that can affect people, depending who the person is in your life, again, grocery shopping. There was a time that I could not walk down the aisle with the hot sauces, because that was big. He had a collection of hot sauces.
Wow.
He actually paid a lot of money for one hot sauce that was a tiny dropper full. And, he had the whole collection in a unit on the wall. But that may be hard. I know somebody that, again, it was her dad, and he always asked her to pick me up. Yeah, his Schweppes. He loved Schweppes ginger ale and all Schweppes brands. And now she has a difficult time in the soda aisle, just even looking at Schweppes, because it's such a big reminder. So these triggers will be present
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, they
Actually,
will be present in many ways, even shopping in meat forms, you know, and buying you cold cuts, right? People like their cold cuts sliced a certain way, and certain cold cuts, you know, the people behind the deli counter.
right. Right.
All of these things
Sure.
could be triggers, so be
Sure.
aware, right?
Sure. But I think you evolve. You know, every Sunday, my husband and I would go food shopping. That was our thing on Sundays. And then we'd cook all our meals for the week. That was our routine. And once we didn't do that anymore, I asked my son, I couldn't go food shopping by myself. I just couldn't do
Yeah.
it. And it took a good, I would say, 3 months before I was ready to go by myself. And that was
And
big.
that's a short
To
period
go
of
to-
time, Lisa.
yeah, 3 months.
That's a short period of time because some people, you know, all right, I'm gonna, so that just reminded me of a story. So my husband and I went to Jamaica and we were on one of these rum runner type cruises that go out.
Yeah.
And he loved these rum runners. And I like them too. It's not a drink that I would drink all the time, but I loved it being there in Jamaica and you're out in the water and having a great time.
Right.
Needless to say, you have to go back to your room and take a nap after that. But when we were getting off the boat, they made available their particular rum runner mix. It's powder.
Yes.
It's just a powder with their brand name on it, their boat name on it, and everything. And of course, everybody wanted one, right?
Yeah.
Good business.
Yeah.
So my husband buys one. So we bring it home and we put it in the freezer because we don't know when we're going to be making, you know, rum runners anytime soon. So Jim's been gone 8 years, Lisa.
It's still in the freezer.
It's still
I
in
knew
my
you were gonna say
freezer.
that. I knew.
And I'm going to tell you why, though. I'm going to tell you why. And we went to Jamaica. It had to be, I don't know, over 20 years ago. Okay. I'll never make it now at this point. Ew. But when we got home, he made it a point to tell me, now don't be making this. Don't touch this. I bought it because I want to make it. And when I'm ready to make it, I'll make it. Don't be having it with your girlfriends out on the deck. Don't look at it. Pretend it's not yours. I wanted to buy it. It is mine. Don't touch it. So it's set in there. And it's funny because I just saw it again yesterday. What's with that?
Yeah, but what a great tribute to him to say, okay, Jim, I just took it out and I'm celebrating whatever the celebration is. I'm celebrating and I'm thinking about you. You see, that's how I see it. That's how I see it. I see a great opportunity to seize it. It's like, as I said, the movies or like the other things that, you know, that the person really enjoyed. To me, that brings the person closer. That brings the person with all the memories again. You know,
Here's another one. My sister-in-law, it makes the best coquito you ever taste in the world. She buys bottles and she makes it up and she gives them away as gifts at Christmas time. So she would always come here and she would bring a bottle of coquito, but then she made a special bottle for Jim because he loved it so much. He didn't even have to drink it and open it. He would put it in the refrigerator and say, don't touch my coquito. This is mine and I'll drink it when I'm ready. And sometimes it was weeks later and he'd pour himself a little glass. Well, now every year she still makes the coquito and she gives me, but the feelings and the emotions that are associated with that can be tough. You know, even last year, I'm looking at it in my refrigerator saying, should I drink that? You know, and I know what you're saying. You're all, and I did drink it. I did.
Good.
Because it's all about the celebration. I get it. But it's still, these are the emotions that certain things trigger.
Yes. And you know what I'm saying to people? I'm saying embrace those emotions. I know that the fear is that you will be down and out, you know, and you'll never be able to come back up. And it's just not true. It's just a momentary feeling of being overwhelmed. And then you're okay. I think that people don't realize how much strength they have in themselves.
Yeah, you're right.
The ability to bounce back and to live as we know that our loved ones want us to live and be happy. And those feelings we need to embrace them and say, this is okay. It's like when I watch that movie and I'm overwhelmed sometimes with the feeling of, like Yento for my father. That's what I watch every year. And she dedicated it to fathers and her father and all fathers. And I am totally overwhelmed sometimes, by her songs and by the movie. And I know every single word by heart because I've been watching it for 38 years. But I embrace it and say, this is part of me and this is part of my father and I. So the same thing with food. So going back to food is that sense of love and that sense of celebration and that sense of tradition. Right. And we can use that and really embrace it to pass it on and to also remember our loved ones through that. I feel
and think about this. Think about different cultures, right? So you have big Italian families.
Yeah.
And they have that big lasagna and they have all these Italian specialties. And that person was a big part of these celebrations. And maybe their favorite was when you made the lasagna. Okay, so now take that purposely as a tool and make it a celebration. And we're having this tonight in honor of him.
That's
right. Or
her.
her.
That's right.
That's
right.
Or her. We tend to think about him, Lisa, because it was a him for you and I, but there
are plenty of hers.
There are plenty of hers.
Two moms that I lost, and plenty of memories for the two of them as well. So
and things get easier with time. Think about moms and grandmothers. I have another thing that revolves around the food is cookware, right? So pots or pans. And I have a pot that my grandmother used all the time. I remember her using it all the time. And I have it. And do you know, it warms my heart every time I go underneath and grab that pot?
Yep. That's right.
It really did.
That's right.
It does.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
So we need to look at food and we need to see that food is really entwined with the memories and the love that we have for people and that it continues that heritage and that legacy. And if we look at things that way, I think that, and we just push the boundaries a little bit, maybe it's just the one dish or the one thing that you remember that person by, and then you're going to add more things to that. I think you just do,
exactly.
Like a cookie or a cake or a dessert.
We're not making light of this because
that's right.
It's very sad and it can be debilitating and it can be devastating, for some time. But with experience, Lisa and I both know that it does get a little lighter in time. And you have to look towards that and look for that. You're a big celebrator, Lisa, and I love that. So it's really important when it comes to food. We had a friend, there was a group of us, and she loved her pastrami sandwiches. So she would find these delis, right, and we'd go out and it would be an event because we knew she loved the pastrami sandwiches so much. And now she's no longer with us. And now it's a celebration to go have the pastrami sandwich at one of these Zans or one of these delis where she loved these pastrami sandwiches.
So today, in honor of my father, I need to make a Belgian waffle. We always used to meet at one of the diners, and he would love the big Belgian waffle with strawberry ice cream and whipped cream on top. That was our thing. And when we met for lunch, that's what we always had together. Always had.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there are families that stay home, that cook all the time. When kids are younger, you don't necessarily go out all the time. But then I see families that are constantly going out to dinner. They don't cook at home. Right. So every family is different and individual. But then you got to think about if you've lost somebody really close that you're used to going out to dinner with or to these places. Maybe it'll be scary to go into them and you don't want to go into them because you think it will trigger you the wrong way. But our thoughts on that, or don't dive into it, right? The thought, like you said, can be scarier thinking about it and looking at it. And then once you're there, wow, what a feeling.
Yes. And again, turning it into something, letting it evolve. So you used to do a certain thing with certain people, just like, my winter solstice thing. And so now it became a girls' night out thing. So if you always went out with your family, so now choose a very close friend or maybe a relative or whoever, but somebody who you would want to do that with. And it's not going to be the same, and it's never the same. But what I'm saying is that you actually let things evolve and it becomes something else. So that food that like the fondue for me now has become a fondue for a bunch of girlfriends, and they love it. And they love it.
Right. So
And
things can change. You can change things up and make them your new tradition.
right.
Your new tradition. Go to that restaurant, order what you like, of course, but then order the same dessert that you both had.
Right.
And always celebrate and remember and reflect and think of those happy times.
Yes. My partner really, it's I guess on her birthday, his wife, but she really liked blondies. And on her birthday, they always get a blondie. I think it was at Applebee's. I'm trying to think of which restaurant it was, but they always do that. And, and they don't do a lot of things like I do, but that's one of them that they do. So
Yeah.
it's food, back to food and love and legacy and remember.
Yeah.
It all just falls together in the same nurturing way and the same love way.
So I was with Jim for 25 years, and on his birthday, he wasn't big on going anywhere or celebrations or anything like that. But the one thing he wanted to do was get his Chinese food. Now, yes, he would get his Chinese food every other week of the year throughout 25 years. But for some reason, Chinese food was more special on his birthday.
Uh-huh.
So that's something that now the boys and I, we do on his birthday. We continue that. We're getting Chinese food tonight. And it's just nice to honor the person that you've loved.
Yes,
right?
It is. It is. So
Yeah.
I think that our message to people is that sometimes it's just the fear and just those overwhelming feelings that prevent us from moving and doing something else. And I think we just need to be kind to ourselves, give ourselves a little more credit, a little more strength that we all can do this. And in small ways, just move forward for ourselves and pace ourselves in what we are able to do. And so whether it's a food or whether it's, going out with groups of people or whoever we feel comfortable with, do something to be able to, again, have a legacy and remember the people who were part of our lives. That helps them live on. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, that was beautifully said, Lisa. It's absolutely true. Times change, things change, nothing stays the same, just like the seasons change. And, to accept these changes and embrace them, and look to new things. As human beings, we're really creatures of habit. I've seen that a lot lately in so many different circumstances, even down to you go to an event and people sit in the same seats on the same side of the room, right?
That's right.
And now, a lot of the habits, including food, now will feel like they just went out the window.
Yes.
Okay, so embrace them and say, how can we do this a little differently now with a different feelings, a different love, a different kind of celebration. You've got it. You've got this, though. You've got this. We've been through that. You've got it.
We just have to understand that things will never be the same. They just won't be. And that's hard for people. And we all get that. But our lives are here to be loved and to be lived and to be the best that we can have. So it's up to us to make that happen.
Right. And to make those choices and to embrace those changes.
Yeah. Yeah. So love your food, eat your food, and live wonderful legacies for food. Love
that
it.
I don't have a hard time doing.
So what else do we do to help people? Susan, you want to talk a little bit about some of the things?
Sure, a couple things. So I do a few things that you can find on my website, eastenddoulacare.com. One thing I've recently started doing are the family grief ceremonies. And that's a way, it's a gathering, it's a 2-hour ceremony that's held in the comforting, safe space of your home to get together with your close circle. You know, it's not a party where you'll invite the people down the street. It's just your very immediate close circle to the person that you've lost and loved. And I go through a series, there's 20 different tools that I bring in that will help reflect and review, and we tell stories, and we start to implement some traditions, and it's really, really, it's a wonderful space for a family to begin their healing process.
It sounds
And
like
it's
a
not
wonderful
something that
option.
you have to do right after a loss, too. It could be a year later or 2 years later, but not everybody grieves the same. And unfortunately, in our society and our culture now, it's even gotten worse over the years. After the 2-hour wake, everybody separates. So whether you need some counseling, you might get one-on-one counseling or go to a bereavement group. Okay, but are you really doing it with your family members? And I think that that's important because it helps bring connection between everybody, and it starts the process of healing together instead of apart.
Nice, nice,
You can learn more about that on my website.
nice. Talk about your healing baskets too.
Oh, the Healing Garden Bowl.
Yes.
Yeah, so I wanted to come up with a product to give a friend when you really don't know what to say or what to do in certain situations. I came up with a bowl, and it's filled with Long Island stones that I get personally, and I engrave special inspirational messages on these stones. So there's directions on each bowl on how to take one a day and really breathe deeply and learn how to meditate on that message for 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening. But sometimes you don't always know the right thing to say. So the themes include if you have a friend with a cancer diagnosis or a friend who's grieving. I even have one for pet loss. And the newest one I launched was for caregivers, because somebody needs to take care of the caregiver, right?
Yeah.
So you can find those on eastendulacare.com as well. So
Nice.
thank you for that, Lisa.
Sure, I
And
know
let's
you have a
hear
few
more
books.
about,
You have a few books too.
yeah.
Books. You just
Yeah,
love
we've
them.
both written a few books, and you've got them on your site as well
I
for
do.
pancreatic cancer, right?
I do. I do. And I love to do workshops for widowers groups or other groups that are grieving. I also am available to do one-to-one. As you've heard, I really like celebrating life, and I've been doing that for many, many years. And death is a part of life. And
Right.
so, I help people with their own journeys, and each person goes through their own journey. So I enjoy doing that as well for people.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah,
So Lisa, I think that our topic was successful today,
me too.
and we hope you got something out of it, really, because this whole thing we call life is really a journey.
It
And
is.
the more we can learn, the more we grow,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely, Susan. Thanks so much. Have a great week. Take care of yourself.
Okay, see you next time.
Yep. Bye.